one. Is this on? Let's see. Okay, we're back, and I promise I won't keep you much longer. We've only got about 130 sheets left, so so to continue with our coatings, we've done the cable coating and how to protect that type of asset from spread of flame. So our next is our steel coatings, and this is a brief run through. You know, these sort of things you can spend days talking about, but I think with this brief run through, and then we can definitely isolate time if need be, if you'd like to talk further on it. But we have a few, but we only do thin film intumescent coatings for the protection of structural steel, up to 120 minutes for British standards and up to 4 hours now for UL or American standards. And we have internal and external coatings. So, sorry about this page. But what is fireproofing? Fire protection and fire stopping traditionally is cables and pipe work. Fireproofing is, in words, is traditionally steel work. But passive fire protection materials insulate structural steel to the effects of high temperatures that may be generated from fire. And they can be divided into two types, which is non-reactive, of which most common types are boards and sprays, and reactive, of which thin film intumescent coatings are the most common example. And reactive means that it actually has a physical reaction under fire, so it intumesces or expands. But these coatings can also be done either on-site or off-site, so after erection or pre-erection. So intumescent coatings are paint-like materials which are inert, LEED approved, and 100% zero VOC for ours at low temperatures, but which provide insulation as a result of a chemical reaction at temperatures at around 200 to 250 degrees. Steel approximately loses its integrity at around 575 degrees. It doesn't catch fire, it just simply bends and loses its structural ability. So at the 200 to 250 mark, these temperatures, the properties of the steel will not be affected, but the properties of the coating will be affected, and it starts reacting and intumescing to start protecting the coating. At another 15 minutes on a cellulosic fire curve, you already hit that 500 degrees. So they swell and provide an expanded layer of low conductivity char. So thin film materials are either solvent-based or water-based and are mainly used for cellulosic conditions. So we have one solvent-based for our external work, but all our internal coatings are water-based. So they are mainly used in buildings where fire resistance are required for 30, 60 and 90, 120, and now in some instances New York is a 3 to 4 hour standard fire rating. They can be applied off-site or on-site, and most on-site applications are carried out using water-based materials, especially for internal work. Where the structure of the materials applied has to have end uses in a dry, heated environment, solvent materials are commonly used. We only use our solvent coatings externally or semi-external applications. So we cover a wider range in our solvent-based. The solvent-based coatings actually perform better and get better ratings, but they are slowly disappearing from the market. Simply, people don't want solvents on their sites. And our solvent is actually xylene. So types of applications, they vary greatly. But for instance, this is just a typical on-site application. It's already there. We come in and we spray after the steel is installed. Here, we're spraying pre-erected steel. So it will be then shipped to site already coated. There'll be damage, shipment damage to this steel when it's moved, and then we would come to site after it's erected and then coat the bolt areas, fix the chips on the paint as well, and bring it up to 100% integrity. This is actually a much easier and quicker application because this is effectively all at hip height when you're spraying. This can be done in scaffolding and everything else, so there's a lot of time. But this is done at a medium height and can be done at a very quick rate. And this column right here, this is what it likes, what the coating looks like fully expanded under fire. You'll see that it's completely filled in and continuing the integrity of the steel for a period of time. And that will come out of something like about a 1.5 millimetre dry film thickness. So that section there would look like that under fire. So like I said, we have a few. So our 370E, E being for exterior, British standard approved 2-hour fire rated solvent based. As I noted when you got down the bottom, our solvent is xylene. All thin film fireproofing for exterior structural steels. We use what's called an FS84 top coat, but any standard local top coat can be used as long as it's a 100% UV and waterproof coating. For C5 environments where it's very corrosive, which you're going to have along here, we use a C5 approved top coat. So FS460, which is our water-based, is British standard again approved, 60 to 90 minute fire rating. Our FS470 is our 2-hour fire rated British standard coating. That FS470 is our most commonly used product worldwide. The majority of approvals we find is, with the exception of Europe mainly, 2-hour fire rating. European ratings can even just simply be 30-minute fire rating, but the same application in the US or in Dubai, in the same area of a building, has to be 2-hour fire rating. So I don't know why, really, there's no rhyme or reason why Europe has different fires in a foyer or lift well than an area in Dubai. I don't know why there's such a different building code. But it's all based on building code. And our FS490, which is very similar to our 460 and 470, but it is a UL approved, UL tested 4-hour fire rated thin film coating. The thin films can run up to 8 and 9 millimetres under UL, but that's for a 4-hour fire protection, which we rarely see, but it does. We do get once in a while. And the main reason why we have difference is there's a different test method for UL to British standard. And the main difference is what's called flux in furnace, and that means that in the furnace, in test of a steel section, even fire stopping for that matter, they inject airflow to show what a real world application would be like. But it's a set airflow under British standards. Under UL, it's not set. It happens all the time in all different ports and at 360 degrees on the section. So it's actually a harder test to get by. But we have it, so there's a multitude of applications for it.
Sorry, what does UL stand for?
Underwriters Laboratory. So that's just a test house, but it's actually tested to ASTM, what's called ASTM E119, which is the American standards, and then UL 263, which is UL's version of the American standards. And UL's version is a lot harder than the American standard that just passed. So an intumescent coating that can be applied to flange beams, columns, hollow sections, and other various steel sections, rods, pipework. The only thing that we really need to know is wall thickness and steel type, because the wall thickness and steel type of that steel section will define what the film thickness of the product's going to be. And that film thickness defines the hourly rating. Up to 2 hours for fire rating for internal and external work under British standards. They expand to form protection in intumescence. Protects by forming a non-combustible insulating protective layer. Strong, durable coatings with no formation and cracks. So let's see if we've got some here. Let me just unwrap those so they can have a look. And he's just passing around some of the samples. So you'll see how hard that coating is after application. All coatings are off-white in colour. We don't care about colouring the steel coating at all in its mixed form, because once the coating is fully cured on the steelwork, it's guaranteed that your customer or you would be painting it anyway. So it's only going to have a latex paint over the top, and that latex paint's irrelevant to us. It doesn't affect the fireproof properties or anything else, because once it's cured, it's fully inert. So then you're painting your latex over it, or acrylics, or whatever the case may be. In a fire, that's gone within milliseconds. So then the fireproofing starts. So having a coating over the top of ours, which is a standard indoor or outdoor coating, is irrelevant to the fireproofing. So standard top coats can be applied after full cure. We sell top coats, but you don't need our top coats. We sell our top coats mainly in Germany, simply because we manufacture them in Germany. But there's no point in us exporting house paint to you. So all of our water-based coatings have LEED approval, 0 VOC, just like our cable coatings. So all of our coatings have no VOCs in them whatsoever, which is perfect for site application, especially commercial work, because that's one of the questions that you'll always be asked. So we have some of the thinnest thicknesses on the market today for 60, 90 and 120-minute fire ratings, and especially for small sections. A lot of the coatings on the market have extremely great thicknesses for medium to large sections, where they be a 960 high universal beam, which is a large section. When we look at our thin sections for 200 millimetre high beams and columns. So we took the application closer to smaller sections, because smaller sections are now being used. Architectural decorative finish. It's easy to install with standard airless spray equipment, which you saw before. Same machinery. No protective top coats required interior. Exterior, yes, definitely. And whether it's a C4 or C5 corrosive environment, it definitely needs that corrosive top coat on top. No formation of toxic gases, acids or fumes in its wet or dry stages. And it has very, very good mechanical difference and hammer test hardness. So you can smash that with a hammer and you won't crack it. So why we use it is we wish to continue the structural integrity of the steel for 120 minutes, up to 180 minutes now, or 240 minutes. So that 120 minutes is for the access to people to get out of a building. It's for the fire brigade to come in and put it on, put the fire out. And a lot of the time with the structural steel after the fact, if you haven't already reached the 120 minutes, you'll already find that the structural integrity of the steel is still intact, and that the coating has to be taken off with sandblasting and then resprayed for rebuild, possibly. Why do we do it? We protect staff and assets, but it still comes down to, even when we come down to profitability and operation of the facility, whether the facility is a steel plant, whether the facility is an office building, you're still protecting the asset, and you're still protecting the profitability of that building, because that building has to make money for its owner. And if there's a fire in there and it's not protected, the owner's not making money. If there's a fire in there and it's not protected, there's no profit for the owner, and it's a massive business interruption. So it doesn't matter what the facility is, protecting it is key. So designs can incorporate the steel in the overall aesthetics, means that they can all be seen. low dry film thickness for intumescence for space within walls, interior, exterior applications, and again the low dry film thickness means less product, less weight, and less costs. And when we come to our approvals, we'll see that the UL 263, which is Underwriters Laboratory, for 4 hours, ASTM E119 4 hours, British Standards 1.5, 2 hours, lead approval, so 0 for VOC for all water-based product, and UL 723, which is basically what's called British Standard Part 6 and Part 7, which is 0 spread of flame on the surface with the coating. So the coating not only fire rates a material, it also has 0 flame spread. And when we look at these types of tables, what we have here is what we use, and we use what's called a section factor, or what's also called a HP over A, which is a section factor of the steel, and that section factor defines what our dry film thickness is going to be, and then that defines what our spread rates are going to be as well. There's a myriad of different types of tables that we use, mainly because there's so many tests that we've done. And when we quote, or if you need quotes done for you, quoting steel coating, it can be an extremely difficult task, and one that's taken me 20 years to understand within my head and doing my head around the corner. It sometimes takes a long time because you have to have your charts with you to work it out. So we provide all of that service for you. We do all the calculations for you. We only need really one thing from you, and that's a fireproofing steel schedule. So we need to know what steel within your building you're fireproofing and the length of that steel. So if it's a HEB 200 and you have 120 linear metres of that, that's all I need, and the fire rating. So you need 2 hour fire rating of that section, then I can price that straight away for you. So if it's not available, we'll need the type of section, whether it's a column, a beam, square hollow section, rectangular hollow section, size, length and quantity. Is the application interior or exterior? What's the primer? Primer is a very key thing, because any primer made in India or China, usually no one can stick to. But the same primers that are made in India with the same brand name coming out of the US or Europe are vastly different products. And that's not the way they mix it, it's the raw materials they use from local content. So we would typically either want to know, the data sheet in the MSDS will tell us where it's made and what's in it, and if we still have some issues, then we would probably want to get a small sample of it and do what's called a stickability or an adhesion test. So we know that 3 or 4 years down the track, we know that adhesion is 100%. Fire rating required. Is it a cellulosic or a hydrocarbon application? And what is the exposure? And the exposure just simply is it 3-side exposure, 4-side exposure, or 2-side exposure? And that means what part of that beam are we coating? If it's 3 sides, usually a beam is only 3-side because the top side is is above the slab. It's at the slab soffit. But if it's 4-side, it's usually a column where all 4 sides are getting applied. So, and that will depend on how much quantity of product you're going to be using. And it's a very similar or typical type of application where you have your primer, which is usually a red or grey oxide primer, the intumescent coating and the top coat. And you can apply it by spray or brush, but like the cable coating, the brush application is ugly, but it's effective. You still get your fire rating and your dry film thickness, but the spray will give you a wall finish, and that's what you want if you want to see your steel. And as again, it's the same type of application machines, readily available, very easy to use. Okay.
Okay. Perfect time. Yeah.
So we can dip into our fire stopping if you like. Yeah? Okay. Sorry, this
You
is
have time and interest. Áhugi til að halda áfram.
Very nice. 15 minutes, maybe.
Except this is a Mac and I can't. Do you know how to use this? Sorry, I'm a PC guy. I'm not a Mac guy. You're not a Mac guy either? I'm just trying to...
Is there a Mac guy in the room?
Yeah, there's. Here comes one.
You want to stop?
Yeah. I just don't know where to... Oh, yeah. No, we can turn the whole thing off. You can just get to my... Yeah, that one. Yeah. Go all the way back. He's not at the top slide. That's what. Keep going.
Maybe our team is too busy.
So, as I said before, predominantly we're a coatings company, but we do carry a line of fire stopping. We bought this company a couple of years ago and then rebadged their system completely out of the UK. And we bought them because of their 4 and 6 hour fire ratings. And we bought them because their system was basic, and that's what's needed within the industry. Their system can do everything that is required, but there's not a million choices and there's no need for it. And a lot of these slides you'll find are double ups, but it's because of the product itself. So what we have is for our FS20 is a 6 hour fire rated penetration seal. Structural mortar for electrical and mechanical services, all British standard tested. And its mix, its dry form is white, but you can colour it. Here we were doing switchgear, so it was coloured a red colour. So our FS20 is a fire rated penetration seal, 6 hours, and it's a compound, so it's a mortar. It's a dry mortar mix with controlled swelling effect to provide a non-shrink, homogeneous and smoke gas-type fire seal. It has fire ratings up to 6 hours, applications for cables, pipes and ducts. Can be utilised as structural mortar, so you only need your structural, you need your mesh in there, and it can be a fire-rated structural penetration seal. Easily applied by pump or trowel or hand, covers large penetrations. And its actually density is quite low. It's lower than concrete, so therefore you can retrofit quite easily out of cables. With the mortar mix itself, the one thing that we have with this mortar, there's no permanent formwork required for smaller penetrations. Larger penetrations, yes, you do want permanent formwork, and there is a defining factor on that. When it's curing stage, because its mortar is non-shrink, it expands in cure. There's no sealant required after cure. A lot of the mortars in the marketplace, once they're fully cured, you then have to come back with a fire-rated sealant around the cable or the pipework to finish off. We don't have that issue. It's only the mortar. Large packaging of 22 kilogram bags. And for our 2 hour fire rating, it's 75mm thickness floor or wall, which is 3.15 bags per square metre, and a 3 to 6 hour fire rating, which is 100mm thickness, is 4.2 bags. And when we look at our approvals, these products are very, very simple. Simple and effective solutions, but there's not much to them. It's a bag of mortar and it's a fire-rated bag. So IFC approved. IFC is a engineering group in the UK. So British standard tested at Warrington, part 22, 2 hours, 3 and 6. Australian standards, part 4, 2 hours and 3 to 6 hours. And also at 100, you'll see an acoustic decibel rating here as well. So at 50 millimetres, we decrease 39 decibels, at 100, 46, and 150, 51 decibels. So it has a few parts to it, and but the main thing is we look for, especially in garages or car parking areas underground, you may require a 4-hour fire rating. So that's the only time we ever see that fire rating come into effect. Usually it's 2 hours. And we have non-structural applications and structural applications. We have not only fire rating or integrity performance, we also have what's called T rating or insulation performance as well. And a T rating or an insulation rating is how long the cold face of the penetration seal takes to heat up. So the fire is on the hot face and the T rating is on the cold face. So for instance, on 100 millimetres and a 600 by 600, if you look at the last line of that section, it's a 4-hour fire rating and it has a 4-hour temperature rating as well. So that temperature does not heat up on the cold face for 4 hours. And these are it's covered up. And these are for reinforced applications. And you'll see down there 1,000 by 1,000, 100 mil thick on the last line, 360 minutes insulation and 360 minutes integrity. I've never ever seen a specification require that type of fire rating before. And then we come to our other. These are the most used products within our overall system of fire stopping is panel and mortar. And our panel, which is a high density 160 kilogram per cubic metre rock wool sheet, coated with FS15, pre-coated to site. So it gives you a 4-hour fire rated penetration seal for electrical and mechanical services. Very easy to install because the panel comes in large sheets and is only cut with, you can cut it with a bread knife, install it, and then use our FS23A sealant to just seal around the cable and walk away. That's all you need to do. So there's no mixing, there's no substrate preparation at all. So our FS21 fire stop panel is a fire rated penetration seal. It consists of high density rock wool, which is 160 kilograms per cubic metre, and FS15, FS23A on the product. It already comes pre-coated, so you don't need our coating, you'll only need our tubes of sealant. Fire ratings up to 4 hours, single panels only. It does not need double panel situation. Applications for cables, pipes and ducts. Water and weather resistant. So this can be on the external face of walls and take weather. Our mortar cannot. If our mortar has to be on an external wall, then it has to be coated with FS15. Mechanical resistance, very large penetration sizes.